If you have what Thank you. If you have questions during the session, I ask that you please use your Q&A button down at the bottom and submit those questions. Sometimes they get lost if you put them in the chat. So one question that I had is, why is the Department of Homeland Security responsible for investigating exploitation cases? And I found out that back in probably the 90s, maybe late 80s, most of the CSAM, the child sexual abuse material that was coming into coming into the U.S. was from other countries, and so those that were responsible for investigating those crimes were the Postal Investigation Services and Customs. So they were initially in charge of that. And of course, after 9/11, the Department of Homeland Security was created, and Customs was put under them. And also they changed their name to Immigration and Customs, or ICE as we know it. And so the reason why, even though now most of the exploitation material is transmitted electronically over the internet, those individuals had the expertise, the subject matter expertise, and so they are continuing to investigate those cases. And today we have Kate Kennedy, who is a subject matter expert, and one of her focuses is education and awareness to share that expertise. So, Kate, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you tell us a little bit about what you've been working on.
Great. Thank you so much, Nikki. I appreciate the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kate Kennedy. I work at the Department of Homeland Security, specifically for Homeland Security Investigations, which is the lead investigative arm here at the Department of Homeland Security. And Nikki, just to piggyback on what you were saying, for the first time ever last year, Secretary Mayorkas issued a new focus for the department, a 6-mission set. First time since the department's formation has this ever happened, and that 6-mission set is combating crimes of exploitation. The department will take a whole of department approach to combat human trafficking in the form of sex trafficking, forced labor in the supply chain, labor trafficking, and then crimes against children. And today I'm here to talk to you about online child sexual exploitation and abuse. So with that, I will share my screen and my presentation deck. Nikki, can you all see it?
Yes, I believe it just loaded.
Okay, great, wonderful. All right, so I am pleased to present to you all today the Know to Protect campaign. Together we can stop online child exploitation. We began this work over 2 years ago at the behest of the DHS Secretary to design and conceptualize a national public awareness campaign around the growing threats and dangers that exist online and that our kids are facing. I'll refer to it as online CSEA, which is online child sexual exploitation and abuse. The numbers with this crime set are overwhelming. National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, we refer to them as NCMEC. Lauren, my colleague from NCMEC, will be presenting after me. They are a phenomenal organization and the nation's clearinghouse for receiving child sexual abuse material tips. And for the first time in 2014, they broke the 1 million cyber tip mark. Flash forward to 2023, and it was 36 million cyber tips. So that's almost a 360% increase in just shy of 10 years. And just to level set, like, what does 36 million mean? Well, one cyber tip could lead to multiple perpetrators and multiple victims. So there's widespread recognition across the department. From the law enforcement perspective, we are not going to be able to investigate and arrest our way out of this crime set. HSI does phenomenal work in this mission space. In FY 2023, our Child Exploitation Investigations Unit identified and or recovered over 1,800 child victims of child exploitation. In FY 23, they also arrested over 4,000 individuals for crimes involving the sexual exploitation of children, and they helped secure more than 1,900 convictions. And yet, the numbers are staggering. As this poor father put it, last summer, the New York Post did a feature story on 4 families who lost their teenage sons to suicide from financial sextortion scams online. And as Mr. Montgomery said, this is a fight and it's a war on our kids, and we have no other defense other than awareness right now. And so that's why the Know to Protect campaign was launched. It is the first of its kind national public awareness campaign from the government to educate and empower children, teens, parents, trusted adults, policymakers to prevent and combat online child sexual exploitation and abuse. It is here to explain how to report online enticement and victimization and offer those critical response and support resources for victims and survivors of online CSEA. We spent the first 3 months in when we were developing this concept of a campaign in a discovery mode, and we talked to the top NGOs across the globe doing phenomenal work in counter CSEA. And what set us apart, well, we knew why we needed to step into this space is because of the work that Homeland Security Investigations is doing. They are truly a global leader in combating online CSEA. And because we are putting handcuffs on these perpetrators and really leading in critical investigations, we know information and knowledge that we desperately want to share with the public to prevent and mitigate this crime from happening in the first place. So the campaign is meant to rely on the expertise and authority of our special agents who are tasked with finding these online predators, bringing them to justice, as well as leaning into our victim assistance and forensic interview specialists to really drive our trauma-informed, victim-centered approach to the campaign. Our goals are threefold. Education, really meant to pull back the curtain, destigmatize this topic, and raise awareness about what is online CSEA and encourage our target audiences to educate themselves and others about the problem. Prevention, provide those critical resources and tools for our audiences to protect themselves and others against online CSEA. And then intervention, we want to empower. This is meant to be an empowering campaign. We believe this is a preventable crime. If we can just get that education and prevention resources out to the public so that they can act, report abuse, and of course, support survivors of this horrific crime. We're seeking to speak to 2 different age brackets. So adults, parents, and caregivers. They're the first line of defense in protecting children, largely unaware of the problem due to denial and disbelief. Trusted adults. They spend the most time with kids outside the home and may provide a level of support when needed if they don't get it at the home. And then minors, teens, most active demographic using technology, especially in a post-pandemic world, falling prey, sadly, every day to various forms of online CSEA, very, very vulnerable due to their increased reliance on technology. Our preteens, their use of mobile devices is increasing. We see parental supervision with this age range really varies. They're beginning to see how cool technology is to connect with friends and strangers alike via social media and gaming platforms. And then young children. Sadly, we have seen cases happen at a very early age. And so communicating online dangers early is key. And so the campaign, it was officially launched in April in coordination with National Child Abuse Prevention Month. And in April, we launched the knowtoprotect.gov website. This is meant to be the go-to federal clearinghouse to educate and empower the public to combat online CSEA. It is chock full of amazing information about the scale and scope of the threat, how to act, report these crimes, free resources, and a specific portal called the K2P Kids portal, meant for kids ages 10 and up. We secured some phenomenal partnerships with the campaign at launch across all industries, from the tech sector, social media, professional sports leagues, youth serving organizations, law enforcement associations. We're really leaning into partnering with the private and public sector to help deliver the campaign's messaging to every corner of society. We're active on social media under the @KnowToProtect handle on Facebook, Instagram, and X. We also have a playlist on the department's YouTube channel, and we have launched a 90-second, 30, and 15-second PSAs. And then we just launched our new digital safety series, which I'll get to a little further on in the presentation. We made an investment in paid media, so advertising across New York, LA, Chicago, with digital displays, and then traditional billboards and posters across the top 25 markets. We did paid media on Facebook and Instagram, and then pushed out our 90-second public service announcement across traditional local TV across the country. And then Project iGuardian, if Know to Protect is covering the airwaves with our prevention and awareness messaging. Project iGuardian, this is the infantry. These are our boots on the ground. These are where our HSI special agents go into the communities where they live, work, and serve, and present in person to kids, parents, trusted adults about the threat of online CSEA, how to implement preventative strategies, and report suspected abuse to law enforcement. Launch day, probably the best day of my life, April 17th. We launched officially on the NASDAQ billboard here to the left. We had a great press conference. We did a takeover of the New York Stock Exchange. We were on the curvy, iconic ABC Super Sign billboard, donated advertising provided to us, thanks to our friends at the New York Stock Exchange for a month. Right here is Mojo, Captain Canine Mojo, who's also one of our iGuardian characters. He's affiliated with the Vermont Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. Electronic detection dog, really cool little fella, definitely made launch day pretty epic. We generated some fantastic media coverage for the launch of the campaign. And then we had organic activations across the country. Mississippi State Stadium lit up with Know to Protect. Billboard, Arkansas State House, Louisiana State House, the Caesar Superdome where the Saints play, and the Simmons Bank Arena in Little Rock, Arkansas, lit up in our campaign colors. We have been advertising across the country on digital and traditional billboard space. You can see here some of our examples. We're in Minneapolis, Portland, DC, Detroit, as well as Chicago and New York, really trying to canvass this country with this prevention and awareness messaging. I'm going to take a quick stop sharing my screen for one quick second so that I can share with you all our 90-second public service announcement to give you an idea a little more about the campaign and our mission set. 1 second.
The threat of child online exploitation has never been bigger.
In the 20 years I've been working, I've never seen this many leads come in.
We see that taking different forms, but essentially it's when an adult offender is targeting a juvenile in the online or digital environment with the ultimate goal of some sort of sexual victimization.
People don't know that this crime is happening at such an alarming rate because it is uncomfortable to talk about.
Bringing it to the forefront can help prevent the crime from happening in the first place.
One of the things that we always want parents to understand is predators go where the kids are. In the past, playgrounds, parks, public places, that's where offenders would go. Now, the digital environment is the playground for these kids.
The Know to Protect campaign will educate and empower children, teens, parents, trusted adults, and policymakers to prevent and combat online child sexual exploitation and abuse. It's never too late to start talking about this threat with kids and teens in your life. Taking a few simple steps can prevent your child from becoming the next victim. Join us and visit knowtoprotect.gov to learn more about what you can do to prevent online child exploitation and abuse.
That was our introduction 90-second public service announcement. And I am pleased to report that that little PSA It's the little PSA that could. It has generated almost 1 million views on YouTube. And I do not believe it's because of the production quality. We are all convinced that it's because of the message that we are sharing. It is so compelling and gripping that we've almost in just shy of 6 months reached almost 1 million views on YouTube. We just recently launched a 30-second public service announcement and a 15-second public service announcement. These are actually airing on the NFL network. They will be airing on the NHL network and at NASCAR-owned racetracks. Those are 3 signed partners with the Know to Protect campaign. And it's absolutely phenomenal free advertising that the campaign has access to. I previewed this a little bit earlier. This is our digital safety series. These are 5 videos that are about 1 minute and 30 seconds each. These cover the main topics that are delivered in a Project iGuardian presentation training. And if you have 10 minutes, you could set aside, watch these 5 videos, and you will get an incredible understanding of what exactly is happening online and what to do if it happens to a child, your child, or someone that you know. We will provide these links in the chat to our YouTube playlist, and I'll work with Nikki as well to have those available to those of you who joined the webinar. As I said earlier, we're live on social media, pushing out the latest threats, trends, as we are seeing it from our special agents, victim assistants, forensic interview specialists. It's so important that we are on these platforms getting out our prevention and awareness messaging and really leaning into understanding this is a dark, hard, difficult topic. Society would rather not focus on it, brush it under the carpet. We no longer have the luxury of remaining in the dark anymore. And so leaning into key artwork and other visual, eye-catching visual concepts to really help inform the public about the pervasive nature of this threat. KnowToProtect.gov is the linchpin to this all. We are really trying to drive the public to go to KnowToProtect.gov to learn about the threats, understand what's happening online, and download the free campaign resources or to request Project iGuardian training in your community. Or our brothers and sisters over at the U.S. Secret Service have partnered with NCMEC. They have a Childhood Smart program at U.S. Secret Service, and they are providing NCMEC's NetSmarts presentation, which is fantastic. The K2P Kids portal, this is the section of the website where we're speaking directly to kids, helping them understand age-relevant language, terminology, exactly how exploitation happens. We give them tips to protect them when they're on social media and online gaming, how to spot a fake profile, what to do if something happens to you or a friend, and then our campaign resources here. Chock full, if you go to the campaign resources drop down of information, free social media graphics, printable posters, the top 10 tips to protect the family online safety agreement. The campaign has had a phenomenal impact so far. We're just shy of, we just celebrated our 6-month birthday, and we've already had over 250 million impressions. So that means 250 million eyeballs could have seen the brand, the name, the messaging. And a lot of this is due to our paid advertising, but the donated advertising opportunities we received from Google, Snapchat, Lamar, Meta, Roblox. They account for 30% of the campaign's impressions to date. That doesn't even include our opportunities on the NFL network, NHL network, and we are beginning to speak with specific professional teams as well to do activations in their stadiums. We really believe, as I said earlier, this is a preventable crime. And if we can galvanize the American public to understand what's happening and to implement these protective and preventative measures, it would go so far in mitigating the crime from happening in the first place. The top visited pages to Know to Protect are Take Action and Know the Threats, right? So society is eager for this information. What is happening online and what can I do to prevent it? Our top downloads, the Internet Safety Checklist, the top 10 tips to protect the family safety, the family online safety agreement. Pivoting over to our in-person training educational program. This is Project iGuardian. This is a legacy HSI initiative that was initially launched in 2013 in partnership with NCMEC. As part of the development of the Know to Protect campaign, we took Project iGuardian under our wing, we stripped it down to its studs, and we rebuilt it from the ground up. We took our inspiration from Marvel comic book characters to develop these awesome characters. Right here is Jesse Justice, HSI Special Agent Jesse Justice, his counterpart, Larissa Law. This is everyone's favorite teacher, guidance counselor, Mr. Emmett. And this is Penny Peace, our resident teenager, and then Mojo, Captain K9 Mojo, who's part of the HSI task force. Really trying to utilize these characters to educate kids, teens, parents, trusted adults, make them iconic and memorable with keeping kids safe from online predators. This outreach tool educates our core audiences about the threat of online CSEA. We now have 3 distinct presentations, and the content in these presentations are driven directly by our investigations. One geared for parents, trusted adults, one for teens, and one for tweens. They are given at all hosts of opportunities, so school assemblies, PTA meetings, corporate lunch and learns, or other affinity group gatherings like school nurses, resource officers, camp counselors. And as I said earlier, Secret Service is doing awesome work in this space as well through their Childhood Smart program, and offers similar in-school presentations, and they can cover down on the little ones, so ages 5 and up. Our characters here, as I said earlier, so imagine, if you will, McGruff the crime dog, Smokey the bear. Those fellas can retire or move aside because we have our iGuardians. We really believe these characters have the potential to become iconic and synonymous with keeping kids safe online. Each of our characters have a bio that accompanies them that is meant to exemplify the campaign's core messaging pillars: education, prevention, and intervention. I'll quickly go over what these decks cover. So for the iGuardian Parent Trusted Adult presentation, this is typically about an hour and 15 minutes in length. It takes an honest, thorough approach to the difficult topic of what is online CSEA, what kids are doing online. And it includes an in-depth overview where our special agents describe the threats and trends that they're seeing in their actual investigations. They give real-world case study examples to help attendees better understand just how quickly a kid can be victimized online. You can see here some of the topics covered: the scale and scope of the threat, the top apps, what kids are doing online, these grooming tactics that predators are using, which is changing every day, week, month, years. We started out with sextortion, now financial sextortion, now it's generative AI. The issue of data permanency, what kids put out there can follow them for the rest of their life, and really zeroing in on how important it is to go home and start having an open dialogue with your kid about what's happening online. Our teen iGuardian presentation, this is geared for 7th graders and up, very much age appropriate, engaging, and it covers the threats that their peers are facing. Our special agents give the information in such a way that it really resonates with this age group. Again, they're using real trends and case examples to show how their peers have fallen victim to these crimes. But it's meant to be an empowering deck presentation. We explain the action teens can take and cover those critical solutions they can immediately implement to safeguard themselves and their friends. Some of the topics covered: the reality of what's happening online, the personal information your phone is sharing. Kids' minds are blown away by this, and data permanency as well. We're really touching on how social media is an addictive property, especially in light of the US Surgeon General's report on this and many others doing work in this space. What predators are doing to groom their peers, and what is sextortion, financial sextortion, and most importantly, what's your exit strategy? If this happens to you, these are the most important immediate actions you can take. Our tween iGuardian presentation, geared for 5th and 6th graders. Really interactive, conversational, takes this topic from the 30,000-foot level, meant to elicit a response, spark a discussion, gives that entry-level introduction to some of the threats they may face online, again, in an age-appropriate manner, talking about things such as, do you know who's in your friend and follower list? What not to share online? Understanding there's a threat that exists, and this is what it can look like. And then really encouraging them to become an iGuardian in their school and back home with their family, and a conversational quiz at the end to underscore the learning objectives. These presentations are having a phenomenal impact. Since FY24, we just closed out FY24, over just shy of 500 HSI special agents domestically and internationally have been trained to give these presentations. We've reached over 102,000 kids and adults and over 1,200 presentations given. And we are getting actual investigative leads and victim disclosures from these investigations. This picture right here is a great example. Special Agent Fetting from our Nashville field office was presenting to a group of about 500 7th and 8th graders. And after his presentation, a 7th grade female student came forward and said, "My friend in the 6th grade is in trouble. She's sending inappropriate naked pictures to adult males online." This little girl sat with this information and didn't know what to do or who to tell. And upon hearing an iGuardian presentation, she had the courage to come forward because she kept hearing how important it is to talk to a trusted adult. This actually led to an active investigation. Her friend in the 6th grade got help. And it's just an incredible example of the power and impact of delivering this information to our communities is having. Anyone in the public can request a training in their community by visiting the training tab on notoprotect.gov. You can request an iGuardian training or a U.S. Secret Service. We provide information about their childhood SMART program and what they cover in their presentations and how to email them for a presentation in your community. And then just quickly going over, this campaign, we are the federal government. We have the full weight and force of the federal government behind it. But we're not going to be able to canvass this country with this critical messaging if we don't make this a public-private partnership. So our partnerships have been critical to expanding our reach and our footprint and ensuring that every sector of society knows what Know to Protect campaign is here to do. Our official partners have committed to supporting the campaign through a written agreement, and it's such opportunities such as statements of support, co-branding, amplification on social media and other media opportunities, helping us with PSA development and distribution, hosting us at national events, doing joint press conferences. You can see here our list of partners as of last month, some top tier companies and organizations that we're really, really excited about. Google, MLB Together, Major League Soccer, Meta, NASCAR, NFL, NHL, Roblox, Snap, US Olympic and Paralympic Committee. Just had a great conversation with them. Yesterday, we will be giving Team USA athletes and their families Project iGuardian trainings, which is really cool. Some of the law enforcement organizations and some of the nonprofit NGOs that we have been working with, and many, many others we are in discussions with, both private sectors, social media, tech as well. The campaign is always pushing out new information. We just wrapped up our Back to School sub-campaign, which we launched in early August, ran through September, really targeting schools, teachers, administrators, all school personnel, giving them free resources to educate their kids in the classroom about online CSEA, and some helpful information directed towards educators, coaches, and other trusted adults. That's also available in our resources section. And then we always are open to partnerships. And if an organization, a partnership isn't quite right, another opportunity is to become a Know to Protect champion, which is equally a phenomenal way to support the campaign and be involved in the fight. And with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Wow, that's a powerful campaign. Congratulations. I can't believe what they've done in just 6 months. That's amazing. So I was writing down notes and questions along the way, and I think you answered all of them. So there were a couple of questions from attendees. One is, could you share the video link? And I believe that's the one you said you would send to me, and I can send it out in the follow-up email. Okay. Then Natalie asked, will we have access to these presentations after the webinar ends, the slides?
I need to check if I'm able to share the slides for Know to Protect. If not, we have other great collateral material, Nikki, I can send to you that you can disseminate to
Okay.
attendees for sure. Yeah,
And it looked like most of the information you shared was on that no2protect.gov.
correct.
Is
Mhm.
the iGuardian information on that same website?
Absolutely, yes. The homepage on the ribbon up top, the training tab, you click on that, drops down all about Project iGuardian. And as I said earlier as well, US Secret Service Childhood SMART program. Really encourage your attendees to book a training in your community. These trainings are fantastic. They're delivered by our special agents. They can really get into the nitty-gritty about what they're seeing in their investigations. And how exploitation is happening, and the preventative strategies to stop it from happening.
Yes, this brings up a great point. So, I've been talking with Department of Homeland Security Investigations since about August, and we've gone back and forth a little bit. They want me to let all law enforcement on the call know that they will they will come to you and train your division, and just let them know, or you can reach out to me and I can connect you. They were reluctant to share a lot of the details because this is a recorded session, but with law enforcement, they're happy to get into the weeds with you guys and talk more about all about that. Another question, I believe this was on a slide, but it may have gone by quickly. How do we move forward with creating a partnership with Know to Protect?
Yep. Also, Nikki, I can either drop in the chat or provide for you the email address where you can email us if you're interested in partnering with Know to Protect. Yes, I can provide that information.
So wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Kate. So next, I would like to introduce Lauren Satterson, and she began at NCMEC as an analyst, and then almost 6 years ago, and now she is the supervisor with the child sex trafficking team.
Great,
So,
thank
Lauren,
you,
I'll turn it over
Nikki.
to you.
And thank you, Kate, for that presentation as well. Nice to speak with you guys today. I will share my screen. Okay. As Nikki mentioned, I have been on the team here for about 6 years, and now am one of the supervisors for our team. So I'll kind of give you just a brief overview of NCMEC and then our team and kind of what we're seeing. So if you're not super familiar with NCMEC, we have a bunch of different programs and we're congressionally funded for about 15, with the sole purpose of finding missing children, reducing that child exploitation, and preventing future victimization. Mostly what we're known for, I think, is kind of going to be like our missing posters and our cyber tip line. So if you're familiar with those, as Kate mentioned, we have seen a large uptick in the amount of reports we're receiving in the millions on our cyber tip line side. So what that is kind of looking like for my team specifically, the best way to kind of describe all of the different aspects of NCMEC is breaking it down between the missing side and the exploited side. So the missing side is anytime a kid goes missing and is reported to NCMEC, they get assigned a case manager. The exploited side is going to be that cyber tip line and some of those other programs. My team sits in the analytical services division, which is really right in the middle of both of those teams or divisions, and that it is extremely beneficial for us because we can kind of see the trends that are coming in from our missing children who might be victims of child sex trafficking, and also from what's coming in through the cyber tip line, both the public and what's being reported from electronic service providers. So with those two different avenues of reports, we've really been able to access a lot of different trends and things that we're seeing on the child sex trafficking side of things. So before I kind of dive into the types of how we're seeing that in technology, I just wanted to reference the 4 main buckets that NCMEC has determined related to traffickers of child sex trafficking. These four buckets really, like I said, have come from that data from the missing side, as well as our survivor-led individuals that we have as well to provide feedback for us. So this is important just because of how these different types of traffickers may present online or may recruit and groom. I think pimp controlled trafficking or non-familial trafficking is going to be what you think of probably the most, with a third party trafficker that is trying to exploit a child and using their vulnerabilities in that manner that may not have any relationship with the child previously, in that sense. Familial trafficking is going to be trafficking that is being facilitated by a member of the family or somebody who may present as a member of the family. And then gang trafficking is going to be just that as well. Trafficking that may be associated more directly with gang control. That type of trafficking that we're seeing tends to be a little bit more violent and rooted in loyalty, and are already formed bonds, kind of like familial trafficking. The buyer perpetrated trafficking that we are seeing is going to be a little different than what immediately comes to mind, in the sense that they may not be a third person trafficker. So typically when you think of trafficking, you think of the child being exploited, the buyer, and then somebody facilitating that interaction. The buyer perpetrated trafficking is really just going to be that buyer exploiting that child, using their vulnerabilities to exchange some type of sexual act for a good shelter, food, something of that nature. So I think that comes into importance because what we're seeing from a technology aspect is the buyer perpetrated and the non-familial or the pimp trafficking is going to be what you will see most likely for that grooming and online enticement aspect that may happen before online through social media. And we'll kind of talk about like how that is being seen from our missing side as well. So of the kids reported missing to NCMEC who had run from care of social services, 18% of those children reported missing were likely victims of CST. So this higher range of potential children that are being potentially exploited through CST is likely because this subsect of children have additional vulnerabilities that make them easier access for predators and traffickers. So here are some of the risk factors that we've also defined, individual, family, and societal risk factors that come into play and really strengthen the different types of vulnerabilities that can be present, specifically in some children who may be in child welfare or don't have a lack of support, have a history of trauma, things of that nature. And these traffickers are really capitalizing on these vulnerabilities that you see here and promising to meet the emotional and physical needs of these children that are displaying these vulnerabilities. These risk factors tend to also be present online. A lot of times we're seeing our children are putting those vulnerabilities on their social media platforms, and traffickers then are able to exploit that information by spending their time reviewing social media accounts that are either public or befriending children who have these vulnerabilities. They are able to take a look at these profiles and learn a lot about a kid. They can learn about their interests, their likes. They can learn about any vulnerabilities, as I mentioned, eating disorders, LGBTQ+, any familial issues or fights that are happening in a home, what that child is struggling with at that time when they're posting that on social media. then these predators can find their mode of communication through that lens. They can reach out to them and make that trusting relationship and promise these children the things that they're missing and are specifically detailing in their social media posts. So we're seeing that happen a few different ways. Like I said, maybe it's just a individual, a predator reaching out through DMs of a social media, befriending them, trying to become a boyfriend, or using themselves just as they are, but offering that additional support to a potential victim. Or we're also seeing somebody pretending to be somebody else. So maybe creating fake profiles and kind of establishing communication that way through both gaming platforms and different types of social media platforms as well. Both of those ways, the whole point of it is to kind of gain this access and create this trust between a child and this additional individual before moving it either to a different platform or moving it to meeting in person. So that's kind of what we're seeing there. The trafficking aspect definitely also comes in with any type of form of something of value being offered to the child, which might entice them a little bit more. So something enticing them for an exchange of money for possible CSAM images, or if they meet up, then they can provide them with shelter or a place to stay, or a place to eat that night, things of that nature. So with knowing all of this that we know about like how this can happen on social media platforms, recently this year in May, there was a bill passed for the Reporting Act, and that requires electronic service providers to report to the cyber tip line instances of online enticement and child sex trafficking. This report act specifically outlines those two crimes against children. Previously, electronic service providers were already reporting to NCMEC cyber tip line for CSAM. So that is part of like that large increase of number that Nikki mentioned earlier that we are already seeing. And because of that, we did have relationships with a lot of these online platforms previously, to which they had requested training on child sex trafficking and online enticement. We had already began reporting before this act. So with that information, we were able to see some trends prior to this. With this going through, we've already started to see an increase from some of these platforms reporting, which is great. We're thrilled by the thought that we're going to be receiving more information, that these platforms are going to be taking more of an initiative to find this specific crime on their platforms. However, we also know that some ESPs may appear to be good actors by just reporting a lot of information, right? But it not being actionable information. So we are aware of that as well. On our website, NCMEC does provide an annual data release of information on online platform companies that are reporting to NCMEC, as well as bad actors and potentially those platforms who are reporting maybe a lot of information, but not actionable information, right? Like we know that sending a report to law enforcement with just a basic screen name in it is not going to be actionable, or like it's really not going to be helpful for anybody. But as a clearinghouse, when it's reported to us, we report it out. So we want to make sure that we are also training these online platforms to notice what online enticement is, notice what CST is, how it's presenting on their platforms, and how to report that appropriately where investigations can be conducted successfully. So with that being said, part of the act also gave NCMEC the ability to create guidance to provide to these electronic service providers. And we were able to take all of that information that I mentioned between our missing kids and our cyber tip line reports that maybe we had previously gotten from online platforms and information from survivors, and pull that together to see what are the trends, what is the language, what different things are we seeing that can be provided to these platforms to help them report more effectively. So we had until yesterday, our guidance went out yesterday, that included some of this information. It's public. This is also available on our website that details some of the information that I've talked about today, just like how online enticement and child sex trafficking is being used and targeted from these different predators, different language we're seeing, different types of ways to gain trust from vulnerable children. So we are expectant that due to this additional guidance and this new act, that our team specifically will be able to receive more reports regarding possible child sex trafficking happening online, so we can continue to educate ourselves and everybody else, law enforcement, child welfare, on these different trends that we're seeing as well. The really interesting part of it is we're seeing some overlap of a lot of different other crimes as well, child crimes as well, right? So we're seeing some of our CST kids also being reported for CSAM, and different types of sexual abuse, and kind of an overlap of a lot of different child crimes. So making sure that that's kind of all being pulled together and provided to the appropriate law enforcement in a report that gives you as much information as possible. And with being able to provide that information, kind of streamline it as much as possible. So with that being said, we have NCMEC has a bunch of different programs that we can reach out and kind of provide this online safety for different types of safety on ages as well. So as Kate mentioned, we have our NetSmarts program. This is really directed in helping both adults talk about how best to have online safety, and in that age appropriate manner. And then it also provides videos and interactive ways that children can kind of learn about this as well. We also have our Take It Down resource. If you're not familiar with that, there's a flyer that will go out on this as well afterwards, I believe. But if you do know of a child who may have nude images that they're worried may be out there, this is a manner for them to be able to self-report that information. We do not see these images. When they upload it to this website, it assigns it a hash match, which is like a digital footprint. And that digital footprint is what is provided to NCMEC and our participating electronic service providers. So if that image is then posted on a electronic service provider that's part of this program, one of those platforms, it will immediately hit based on that hash match and it can be removed. So we're not looking at the images. It's just a way for a child to report their own images that might be out there and stop that spread. And then we also have NCMEC Connect. So our NCMEC Connect is free, it's training, it's available for all different types of professions. So law enforcement, child welfare, general public. We have modules on child sex trafficking. We have modules on sextortion, online enticement, things like that. Again, all free. You just have to register with NCMEC Connect, and that will all be at your fingertips. So those are kind of our three big resources for trainings. And then if you have and if you need to report anything, if you need really anything from NCMEC at all, you can contact our 24-hour call center and they will get you to the right place. You can also report any type of online enticement, exploitation, missing child to the call center or our cyber tip line. And if you have any additional questions, or you need to contact our team specifically, if you're law enforcement or child welfare, you can also reach out to them and they'll get you to the right place. And then please visit our website because, as I mentioned, NCMEC Connect, NetSmarts, Take It Down, that's all on there. The information about the Report Act, the information about what platforms are reporting to us, who possible bad actors might be, can all be found on there as well.
Awesome. Wow. Is there anything that the online platform can do to keep the children safe? Is there anything more that they can do? Or I'm wondering like why some are less safe than others. Maybe some are less willing to do those things.
I think it depends on the platform, but a lot of times what we see that can make apps a little bit more riskier are those that have that direct chatting type of platform that may be chatting with not like friends, right? So if you think about gaming platforms where you can kind of just chat with strangers or things in that nature where it's really strangers talking, the more type of privacy you can have on social media, the better chances that you can control who is contacting your children. And so I think that that is definitely part of it. That being said, as we know, predators can make fake accounts and still friend and come into those type of private accounts, but the better privacy settings a social media platform has, the better safety we're seeing.
So one of the tactics that I've heard, and you haven't mentioned it, so I was just wondering if you're seeing this too, is that the predator might reach out to a child online, start talking and start the grooming process, and at some point ask the child to move to a different platform that's less safe.
Yes, thank
Are
you
you seeing
for
that?
bringing that up. We do see a lot of transfer of platforms, chats that might start somewhere and then, hey, let's chat on this different one, especially if there's more like end-to-end encryption on those type of platforms as well, or platforms that may have, less safety guidance, things of that nature. So when electronic service providers send us tips, sometimes we will see that it kind of cuts off to like, hey, message me on this app, or can you text me from this number type of situation. So we might only have a glimpse of that initial type of exploitation, and then we're assuming it is going off to another platform.
And these other platforms that they're moving to, they're the type of platforms that maybe are harder for you guys to get into to see. Is that why they're doing that?
Yeah, yes, it's either harder for us to see because they're not as public, or harder based on safety or regulations of what's being reported. So some of these like
Regulations.
yeah,
Okay.
encryption types of chats, they might not catch certain things that are being talked about on the platform, so it's not going to be sent over in a cyber tip line report, let's say.
All right. So I think you've been pretty thorough on how they're accessing kids online, how they're grooming them, how they're exploiting them, different ways, and sometimes the ways overlap, like you were saying. I was wondering, are you saying, this is going to sound like a weird question at first, but bear with me. Are you seeing a change in who the predators are? And the reason I asked this, I was in preparation for our webinar that's coming up on the 13th. I was talking with a direct service provider that's going to be speaking, who works in North Carolina. And she said that she's seeing a big trend in children exploiting children. So I was wondering, are you seeing that as well, or is there like a change in who the actual predators are, or do you not really capture that as much? Is that more done on the investigative HSI side?
We see the predator really as everybody right now. Like we see him from like I said, family members, it can be trusted adults, it can be strangers. But usually there is it's also a wide range of ages from like 18 to older adults. When it comes to from our end, I think more child on child victimization, what we're seeing is really children that might know each other from a trafficking lens, at least children that might know each other in child welfare group homes, things like that, that could possibly be introducing their exploiter to another child. So that's kind of a link that we see a lot on kind of our missing end. But it really runs the gamut, I would say. I don't know if Kate sees anything or has anything to add on that one.
No, I think you covered it. Yeah.
And then if anyone else has any questions, add them in that Q&A. I do have one more. Is that you mentioned, Lauren, about you guys do an annual data release. Where is that? How can I find that?
Yes, you can find that on our website. So just missingkids.org. And I hope that wasn't wrong. Yeah. And yeah, so there should be a resources tab, and in that
Okay.
resources tab, there's usually information on different press releases we put out and things like that. So that data, I can provide you a link as well, Nikki, to go out, or I can put it in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm interested in reading that Report Act guidelines that just came out yesterday.
I know, great timing, right?
Dig into that, right? Yes, dig into that. So we have one other question, and it just says, can these slides be provided?
I will also have to double check on that, but I will get
Okay.
that to you. If not, as I mentioned, a lot of those other information flyers will go out as well.
So yeah, so attendees, you can expect to receive a follow-up email from me with all these resources. And one final question. You said, I believe, that you guys also provide training to law enforcement. Am I making that up? Okay.
Yeah,
Like I
no,
thought I remember hearing you say that.
yes, we do.
And can we link to that on your website as well?
That probably best would go through the cyber tip line. If you are law enforcement and you have any questions from that, if you either contact our hotline or the cyber tip line, usually the hotline will be able to get you to the right place on where to go. We do provide specific law enforcement training, also child welfare training as well. I didn't talk about it too much, but our kind of program also includes a recovery services program. So they specialize in assisting child welfare with missing children who are victims of child sex trafficking. And as we know, there is usually a lot of run repeat behavior. And so when we are able to locate that child and we know this history about their victimization, what's next, right? Like, how can we help assist child welfare in placement or in what you need to try to help do the best to help that child maybe break that
Keep them
cycle
safe,
or
right.
get them to a safe place that night. So we also have information on that. So if you are interested in that, you can also contact the hotline and we can get you to the right place.
Yeah, I do believe we have some child advocacy centers joining us too, so that might be some helpful information for them. So speaking of law enforcement, our next webinar on the 6th, we will hear from the Invictus Project, and they have been up and running now for about 6 months, I think. And that is a group of sheriffs got together with a nonprofit and the SBI and the FBI investigators, and they created a fusion center that goes after predators online. And I know they have been working closely with NCMEC to see, if they can recover some of these lost children, and they have been very successful. And so they're going to join us next week and talk about how they do what they do and what they have encountered. And they work in North Carolina, so this is a local group. And then we'll also that same day hear from Street Grace and what they do, how they use technology to combat demand, and they will give us an example and let us run through, use our phones and text with a bot to experience what a potential buyer might experience when they interact with Street Grace. So that will be the 6th. So I look forward to seeing everybody at the next webinar. And let's see, getting some comments. Yes. So yeah, Dr. Jim Duncan will be hosting that, moderating that. So we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you, Lauren, and thank you, Kate, for being with us today. It was so insightful. My brain is full. I have taken notes, and I'm going to have to go through and look at these websites and learn all this information and digest this. So thank you for so much information, actionable information that we can use. All right. I appreciate everyone joining us, and we'll see you on the 6th.
Thank
Bye.
you.